So yes, we are here today to talk about enabling high performance and strategic capabilities with flow metrics. So as Laurel stated, I am Kristen Biddulph, the Flow Framework Engagement Manager with Tasktop, and let's go ahead and get started today. So an executive from Bank of America explained in an interview that technology has completely changed the notion of business integration. You cannot say that business is technology or that technology is business. They are one and the same. However, frequently there's a disconnect between business and IT. Both sides speak their own language. Compound that by orienting around a product and the disparate views become more apparent. To business, one product is one product, and to IT, one product can be 7 artifact types, 6 tools, 10 projects across 8 teams. Furthermore, without a North Star a clear value chain, product managers struggle to know when to turn work away, which clouds the backlog, dragging the end-to-end flow of work with it. We know that work that we do resides in tools like ALMQC, ServiceNow, Jira. There are so many different ways that artifacts are grouped within tools and multiple teams working within them. Visualizing and measuring the end-to-end workflow is a foundational requirement for enabling companies to master software-based solutions at scale. And that's what the Flow framework addresses. Tasktop is uniquely positioned to strategically execute on practical, realistic, and concrete approach. We've been able to observe value stream flows and patterns from over 300 enterprises across different industries like finance, retail, insurance, auto, healthcare, technology, academia, federal government, and so on and so forth. Our approach is driven by the experience of our thought leadership, with the amazing talent on our team and access to recognized authors and speakers, culminating in Mick Kirsten's book on the Flow framework. The Flow framework is our North Star for our product roadmap and company strategy. We use the Flow framework to measure and optimize the flow of business value through product-oriented software value streams that are correlated to business results. The Flow framework highlights the end-to-end workflow across ideate, create, release, and operate so that you can see where bottlenecks are and see what's slowing things down at the product value stream level to fix the problem. We have 2 main product value streams here at Tasktop, Viz and Hub. Between the 2, they bring all the aspects of the Flow framework to life. Starting at the bottom of this, first, tools that teams use to manage work get connected to Tasktop, and then you identify which artifacts across stories, epics, features, vulnerabilities in those various tools impact the flow of business value. And from there, model the product value stream and their workflow. Then you can easily start to capture the data to view flow metrics in Viz. Now, Viz is what provides the visibility and insights throughout your journey of moving toward a product-centric way of working. Our goal here at Tasktop is to optimize the flow of business results. Making this visible and providing measurement will prompt prioritization conversations between IT and business that will ultimately assist with breaking down the historic silo and enable them to come together as one team. Furthermore, defining work as features, defects, debt, and risk will promote the right behavior to achieve your company's desired goals. There will be intentional trade-offs of prioritization across these categories to be successful. One infamous example of this is the Bill Gates 2002 memo on trustworthy computing, where he wisely stated, "Trustworthiness is a much broader concept than security, and winning our customers' trust involves more than just fixing bugs and achieving 5 nines availability. It's a fundamental challenge that spans the entire computing ecosystem, from individual chips all the way to the global internet services. It's about smart software, services, and industry-wide cooperation." Analyzing these actions through the Flow framework, he set the North Star of first focusing on risk and then focusing on debt, and understood the trade-off of this focus meant turning away new feature work. So let's go ahead and view the flow item types as units of value creation. Features drive new business value, and this is pulled by the customer. Defects lead to quality improvements, which is also pulled by the customer. Risks provide the necessary updates for security, availability, compliance, and this is pulled by risk officers. And debts improve the code and ways of work, and this is pulled by the architects or the value stream architects. So let's go ahead and view how we measure these flow items in the flow framework. First, we evaluate flow load, which is the total number of flow items currently in an active or waiting state. When you talk about flow load, this frequently can paralyze a team if they've taken on too much, where they churn and churn and churn and never get anything done. As Dominica DeGrandis says, say no, less whip. We want to make sure that folks actually start finishing things so that you get the throughput you're looking for. Flow distribution is the ratio of flow items completed over a particular time period. So this is how you evaluate where you're putting the emphasis of your current goal, right? So you'll be taking a look at this to see what ratio of feature work versus defect work versus risk or debt work. And many times companies forget about categorizing work in risk or debt categories. Flow velocity is the one that most folks are familiar with. This is the number of flow items completed in a given time period where the state equals done. Flow time is the total time from work start to work complete, including both active and wait states. So this isn't necessarily just from when the team has accepted the work. This actually goes way before that, from concept all the way through to implementation. Flow efficiency measures the actual time you have spent on a flow item as a percentage of the total flow time. So frequently, we forget to measure the amount of time that we are in active and wait states. And as a result of that, we're not really understanding how efficient or non-efficient we are at getting value to the customer. Now, when we talk about implementing the flow framework with Tasktop, we typically view this in three veins: learn to see, learn to improve, and learn to scale. Our initial item is to connect tools and model the product value streams so that we understand the flow of work. From there, we work to baseline your flow metrics. And as we baseline, we stress that the flow metrics that we initially receive aren't good or bad. Rather, think of it as a point in time of where you are starting. And then we go ahead and marry that to what is your goal and what do you want to accomplish, so that we can appropriately lay out a plan as we're identifying the bottlenecks and gaining insights. From there, we take that goal and the insights we've gathered from identifying the bottlenecks, and we design an improvement strategy around that. As we implement the experiments and move forward, we do make sure that the output of that is to measure the business impact of improving the flow. Not every bottleneck is a tactical item that you can fix overnight. Sometimes you have to go ahead and pinpoint the bottlenecks to drive investment strategy across the longer term. And as you learn to scale, we expand out to more product value streams, define and measure the entire product portfolio so that you can capitalize on reducing your time to market and velocity gains. Not many folks realize that flow efficiency gain of just 1 to 2 points translates into 10 to 20% reduction in time to market. And that's significant when organizations must find ways to compress the timeline to deliver the features customers seek amid increasing market disruption to stay relevant. The entire way through this, we stress to share your successes to shift the mindset, because this really is a cultural shift that you have to have and embraced by the teams doing the work and the executives supporting the work. Our goal here in this program is to provide your organization with the infrastructure needed to define and measure software delivery with the flow metrics and to connect your product value streams across your best-of-breed tool landscapes. We like to start small, measure, iterate, and refactor for the largest of impacts. So as we're talking about starting small, let's go ahead and define that. Initially, we go ahead and say, let's go ahead and have up to 3 product value streams, and we'll measure these across 6 months. Then we're going to make the end-to-end value stream of software products explicit, visual, measurable. And we're going to teach you a new language, the language of flow, to articulate where things are today. This is where business and IT can come together underneath the same lexicon. And the goal is to improve the flow of business value and shorten the flow time and increase flow velocity to help with competitive advantage. We'll gather your baseline metrics for your improvement initiatives. And then we're going to teach you to leverage the flow data to outline the continuous improvement experiments driven by the business results that you need to achieve. As we get started, this is what our roadmap looks like. We like to identify the flow team and the product value stream teams. And then from there, we create your value stream architecture diagram and network and do a tool network assessment. From there, we'll make recommendations and create your product canvas, as well as train your folks on what is the flow framework and the flow items. How do we use these to move forward? We'll connect your tools, and then we'll model and visualize this in Viz. And from there, we like to work to baseline and then create the strategies to improve your flow and take those learnings so that they can be extrapolated across the enterprise. All the way through, we have stakeholder review every single month so that folks can enjoy the show and tell nature of here's our metrics and here's what we have done in order to improve and meet our goals. These are celebrations of what the teams have done to commit to this. Now, the enterprise flow team and the product value streams do work together, but they have different focuses. The enterprise flow team oversees the overall program. They provide the systems thinking, support the experiments, and elevate the insights to the organizational level. They use the results to drive systemic improvements for your value streams and manage the sustaining and scaling of the product design implementation across the overall enterprise. The product value stream teams, rather, are the subject matter experts for a specific product. This includes someone focused on delivery and people management, somebody focused on improving business results, somebody focused on improving flow. And this might include any of these roles you see here, like the product owner, the product manager, the scrum master, and agile delivery manager. So all along the way, the product value streams are going to be modeling their value streams, tracking their business results, interpreting their flow metrics, designing experiments, and evaluating and sharing the results of those experiments. But your enterprise flow team is critical to the success of your overall mission. It is comprised of these 4 roles. You have an executive champion that creates and catalyzes the flow team. They provide direction on the vision, the budget, the authority, the needs, and the timelines. This person is responsible for the overall outcome of the program and does not participate directly, but certainly doesn't disengage either. This is the person that, as we encounter blockers, is going to help us push through and enable us to get the work done. The product journey owner is the IT business level owner of the project to product transition. They work with the executives and managers across IT and lines of business to deploy the flow framework, and they're focused on providing the business with end-to-end integration visibility. This is the person that's going to enable the conversation so that we can break down the silo between business and IT and become one team. Then you have the value stream architect that is going to be your technical champion for the work. They're focused on providing the end-to-end integration, and the architects for speed of delivery. And furthermore, your value stream implementer. This person works with Tasktop and understands the details necessary to generate flow metrics They also work with the value stream architect to implement models in the tool. Now, here's how they come together. As the product value stream develops the hypotheses, designs the experiments, and measures the results, they're going to have outcomes. And from there, they will share the stories to help change the overall culture. The enterprise flow team will take those stories and apply systemic thinking to scale across the overall enterprise, across people, process, technology, and learn from the overall outcomes. So how do you get started with the flow framework? Let's go ahead and talk about this. We can provide a free 1-hour consulting session. And in this consulting session, we'll identify the product value streams within your organization, visualize your flow of work, and discover opportunities to make your value stream more tangible. If interested, you're more than welcome to go to that link. In addition to that, you can also see Tasktop Viz in action and a little bit more about its capabilities. To schedule a demo to see how Viz can help you measure flow metrics, visit www.tasktop.com/demo request. And to learn more, you can also read about the flow framework, flow metrics, and where to begin it at www.tasktop.com/flow framework. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kristen. And as a reminder to everyone, if you do have questions, you can put them in the questions box right now, and I will get them over to Kristen. We do have a couple that came in, and the first one is, we're still project-based. Is the flow framework and flow metrics something that can be applied to project-oriented teams?
Yeah, so the flow framework is really for anybody, anywhere, regardless of where they are at in their journey. So frequently we hear, well, we're not ready for that yet. You don't have to be in a full-on agile transformation, product-centric journey to be able to reap the benefits of the flow framework. What I typically say is, if you have a goal and you have tools that you're leveraging for the flow of your work, you're ready for the flow framework.
Awesome, thank you. And another question that we got is, what are the cultural impacts of implementing the flow framework?
That's a really good question. So as folks embark on this journey, typically it's forgotten just what it takes to really implement a change across an organization. In the DevOps handbook, there's 3 different cultural types that are prevalent within organizations. You can have a pathological cultural type that's prevalent. You can have a bureaucratic cultural type that's prevalent, and you can also have a generative cultural type that's prevalent. Really what you're going for and what really helps with the success of your organization over time is leaning in toward the generative culture. So what does that mean when I say generative culture? What that means is a culture that's supportive of innovation and of figuring out multiple ways to solve a problem and get to your goal state. So frequently when we go through this and we start to organize these experiments, the first shift is getting that executive support for the teams to design their hypotheses and experiments, because the people who are doing the work are the folks that really understand how to actually blow through those. And as they get more confident and more comfortable doing those experiments and leveraging the data as the basis to identify whether or not they're successful or not, the more likely they are to go ahead and spread this culture where they want to learn from each other. And ultimately, as they learn from each other, your company becomes more successful.
Awesome, thank you, Kristen. Another question is, how would you go about convincing your boss or introducing this when you are not a part of the management team?
So when you're not a part of the management team, I find that the best way of doing this is really, initiate a conversation, right? So the first thing to do is to acknowledge, what are the problems and what is our business goal, right? And as you acknowledge your problem statement and outline where your goal is and you have alignment on that, understanding, do we have a basis of measuring our way there? In most instances, folks will say, well, gosh, I have DevOps metrics, or I have, other homegrown metrics. I have a data lake that I'm pulling from, or, I have a spreadsheet. And really what we tell folks is, those metrics are great, and it's great that you have something. But the flow framework is really that foundational piece that of metrics that can help you on your journey, regardless of where you're at. And they're widely accepted across the industry as well in terms of, creating a common lexicon to help bridge that gap between your business and IT. What is frequently unrealized with some of the metrics that are out there is that it's lost in translation when discussing with your business partners, but it's a little bit easier when you start building this knowledge and acumen across these metrics from business to IT to be able to say, yes, I know what flow load is. I understand what flow efficiency is, and I know how to create our goals. So when you're not a part of the management team, really it's best to start having a conversation, engage the interest, and then providing the contact information and then reaching out to us. Does that help?
That was great. Thank you, Kristen. And somewhat tying to that, a question that we have is, can you give a real life example of how a Scrum Master or another individual practitioner was able to enable this kind of change, if you have one?
That's a good question. So unfortunately, I'm not able to give client names, but I can say that, we have had a Scrum Master be able to take a look at the dashboard of Viz and be able to identify, every other iteration, our flow distribution is going back and forth between feature work and defect work. That looks a little strange. And so through Retro, they were able to garner from the team, well, the reason that's happening is we're not able to complete the testing within the iteration. And as a result of that, we're fixing a lot of defects in the following iteration. And so the Scrum Master thought, well, there's a couple of different things that we can do here. So let's go ahead and formulate a couple of different thoughts on how we might be able to fix this. And then we'll vote as a team on which experiment we want to try and across what duration of time we want to try. And from there, the team was able to devise a couple of different things. One being, well, maybe our story sizes are too big and we need to start creating smaller batches of work to work on through the iteration. Another was perhaps we need to begin automation and getting more automation started at the same time and practice more of an ATDD function throughout the iteration. And then the last thing was basically doing more of a look in the requirements phase of perhaps the requirements aren't robust enough for the folks to be able to actually do the development and the automation because they're having to go back and ask questions so frequently. And so along those lines, the team voted on first taking the approach of smaller batch sizes and seeing if that helped, because when they took a look across their iteration, they saw that they had several 8 and 13 pointers, and those were really, really large batch sizes. And so as they cut down on the batch size, what they saw was that their distribution across the iterations slowly became less red, green, red, green, for feature defect, feature defect, feature defect. And became much more feature work driven and less defects found over time. Does that help?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you, Kristen. Another question we have, and we just have time for a few more, is it possible to implement the flow framework without Tasktop?
So Technically speaking, folks can try, yes, absolutely. But we do discourage this from the standpoint of Tasktop is a product company. We've been doing this across the last 13 years. We have 59 of the most leveraged tools in the industry. We have connectors built, I should say, for 59 of the most leveraged tools across the industry. And so what I really recommend is not that diversification out to build your own products in that fashion, but rather focus on the product that is going to drive your business forward. So if you're in retail, focus on your retail product and come to us in order to help you implement the flow framework. It would be like saying, well, I have Jira, but should I go ahead and build my own Jira? Technically speaking, you can do that. Does it make sense for your business to do so? That would be the question that I would go ahead and have to that. And furthermore, I think that it would be a huge investment in order to do that yourself, to build your own tool like this. And so it might actually be more economical to implement that through Tasktop.
Thank you, Kristen. Absolutely. And again, you can find more about the time and resource savings on the Tasktop website. Another question is, in an agile setup, is the product value stream team typically a separate team, or is it part of the development team?
So there are two schools of thoughts on how to look at this. And I don't know that necessarily I want to say that one is right or wrong, where I can say, folks come together and are the most successful is when they view it as one team. So when you think about the quote that I had initially in this presentation, it's no longer separate, business and technology. You have to be able to upskill and build the acumen across business and technology to be successful in today's market. And the disconnect that we see, the silos that we see across business and IT today, that's what happens when we don't have the proper types of uplift across those communities and that cross training across those communities. And frequently that can mean a lot of flow issues along the way as a result. Anytime you don't have a clear value chain and an understanding of that value chain collectively, it can lead to a lot of things coming out and pushing out the other end and being implemented that are not of value to the customer. And so what I really recommend is figuring out a way to build that partnership and trust, come together as one team, and then be able to speak the same language so that you can be able to get out there in front of the customer where they are today when they want your product in order to be able to survive through this age of disruption.
I want to thank you all again for joining us, and thank you again to Kristen for the presentation.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.